Hello everyone, this is Adam at the Astro Imaging channel. Today we have Guylain Rochon presenting BackyardEOS. Pretty much everybody that uses a DSLR, a Canon DSLR, probably knows BackyardEOS. It's a great program. If you have a Canon DSLR, you should download it and try it. It's definitely worth the money. I can't speak more highly about it. And with that introduction, I told Guylain he was going to get some gushing, as did some others. So I'm going to pass it right over to him and let him go over it. Guylain, there you are.
Hi. Well, thank you, Adam, for the introduction, and most of all, thank you for having me on the Astro Imaging channel. It's a pleasure to demo BI, or BackyardEOS BI for short. So one thing I want to frame this presentation as an interactive presentation. I don't want to turn this into a sales demo or a typical sales demo. I want this presentation to be for the users mostly. So if you've got any questions and you're live, ask them. And if you're on the web, feel free to ask Adam, the moderator, the questions, and he's going to pass that question along to me, and I'll do my best to answer that question live for you. So what I'm going to be demonstrating today is BackyardEOS 3.1. It has not been released yet. I've released BackyardEOS 3.1 up to beta 4 on my support forum, and I'll be showing you, sorry, not beta 4, but release candidate 4, and I will be showing you release candidate 5 today. And hopefully I'll be posting it on the forum later this week. And for those who are asking, BackyardEOS 3.1, hopefully I'll release in production sometime by mid-October, so just a few weeks away from now. So I'm going to start that off right now. So I'm just going to maximize the screen just a bit. I'm going to leave the icons that I'm going to use every now and then during the presentation here on the right side. Can everybody see my screen properly?
Yes, yes we can.
Yes, you can. Okay. So the main UI basically consists of major modes in the upper left corner, followed by some information panel. And as you move to the right, it becomes more and more intense as you go along. So I'm just going to connect a camera so that most of the buttons will light up. The first thing you see when you try to connect a camera is what type of camera you have. BackyardEOS supports cameras going back to the 20D, I believe, which was released in 2004-ish, give or take a year. So that's almost 10 years worth of Canon DSLR that we support. Along the way, Canon did make some changes to their SDK to a point where older cameras would no longer work with newer SDK, which means software development kit. The SDK is what I use to actually communicate with the camera physically. So the first screen that you're being prompted to is what kind of camera you'll be connecting to BackyardEOS. Basically, older cameras before 2008, which is the 5D, 20D, 20DA, 30D, and 350D, you need to select the older Digic 2 Canon drivers. For any camera that was basically built or released from 2008 and beyond, so from the 450D, you would select the new camera. So this option applies for almost everyone. If you know that you only have a camera or you'll only be connecting newer camera, just click that box and your selection will be remembered. So I'm going to do that in this case. So I've got my Rebel XS right now connected, the 1000D. So immediately these mode automatically got lit up. I got a camera information center that's full of information from the camera. It gives me the time value. I've got a lens connected to my camera right now, so it gives me the aperture value, the ISO, the dial, the camera image quality, and battery level. I've got an AC adapter in this case, so battery level is always showing AC in that particular case. So just to recap, 4 modes here: main imaging mode, frame and focus, which shows live view. I've got my camera pointing on a Canon EOS box. Planetary mode, which uses live view, and drift alignment mode. So these are the 4 main mode in BackyardEOS. What's standard in BackyardEOS is, regardless of the mode that you're in, if you look at the UI in the lower right corner, this is where all of the main control that you'll be playing with. Regardless of the mode that you're in, the right bottom corner is where all the controls are. If I go into frame and focus, a lot of information controls in frame and focus exists here. If I go into planetary, the same thing here. The left, not the left, but the right-hand side changes. Drift alignment, the same. On the right side, almost nothing ever changed, and that's just a design pattern that I've used throughout the development, so that once we're used to a format, that format doesn't change regardless of the mode that you're using. So I'm going to go into imaging mode. Does anybody have any questions before I go any further into more depth?
Is the imaging, or does that interface work with the netbook as well as the full-size laptops?
It does. What it does is BackyardEOS, when it starts, it actually looks at your screen resolution. And if you have a netbook with a lower screen resolution, it will actually resize to fit. I can actually demonstrate that right now. There is an option in settings, so I'll just go into settings. I'll trigger that option just so that you see what the screen will look like if you start BackyardEOS in a on a netbook, which has a very small resolution. And then I'm going to get back to the current mode. So I'm going to access settings. Don't worry about all those settings. I'll explain that. I'll just trigger netbook resolution here and save. See how small it got all of a sudden? So this is basically what it would look like. You've lost the histogram. Not sure if you've noticed, but you've lost it. But instead, I've added a button here so that you don't necessarily lose that functionality. It's just that there's not enough screen real estate on a netbook to actually display all of the controls. So for that reason, it was hidden, but it was made available via an option here. So I'll go through the details. So I'll just go back here.
Thank you.
I'll disable that so that I'm back to my full screen. Awesome, that was a great question.
Guylain, I only want to interrupt you for 1 second. For all the non-interactive viewers, the viewers that are out on the other channel, if you have questions, type them in the comments on the Google Plus page. The Q&A, again, isn't working, but try it there, and I think we're trying to get one other person in. But that's all. Guylain, go right ahead.
Yeah, that's a good point. The more question you guys ask, then the more fruitful this presentation is, as far as I'm concerned. Because, as I said earlier, this is about showing the features that you are looking for, and I don't want to turn this into a sales demo. So, thanks for that, Adam. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a single picture. And this is the power of BackyardEOS. There was a review in Sky and Night magazine in 2012, I believe, in the UK, and I can't remember the guy from the magazine that wrote the article, but he labeled the Capture Plan Center as the dream sequencer. Why? I guess because he liked it. But at the heart of it, you can have up to 25 different line items. You'll rarely use 25. I think the average Capture Plan Center will have anywhere between 1 and 4 or 5 items. So that's the beauty of it. So I'm just going to do a very quick plan. Let's say I'm going to image the Canon Box Nebula. And let's say I want to take 2 images. I'm not going to take bulb because I'm actually inside, and bulb is going to be pretty oversaturated. So I'm going to try 1/10 of a second. And I'm just going to come here and press Start Capture. So the very basic of BackyardEOS, you connected your camera here initially, which put you into the imaging mode by default, and then you move all the way to the right section, and this is where your controls are. What I did is I've labeled the target that I'm imaging, and that target name becomes important because it will actually be transferred in all of your images. So your image on your disk, once you're done, will actually contain your target name. It won't be just image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It actually contains some useful information. So I'm going to go ahead and start the capture plan. So it's going to take 2 images back to back, and it's going to display those images. So that's one. It's being downloaded. And then, yeah, I'm actually looking at a box. Okay, so 2 images were displayed. Both were a 1/10 of a second each at f5.6 ISO 1600. Now I'm going to draw your attention in this area here. Right here, it says Image Center, Canon Box Nebula, which is the target that I'm currently imaging. It says light, because this is a light frame. It says TV 1/10 of a second. That's the duration of the frame. ISO 1600, and a lot more useful information. That is the actual file name, the image file name. And I'm going to go into Windows now, and here's the actual image that I just took. Actually, I took 2 images. I have my settings set up to RAW and JPEG, large JPEG. So I actually have 2 images, or 2 files for the same image, one RAW and one JPEG, one RAW and one JPEG as well. So all of your images by default are stored in your My Documents, Pictures, and BackyardEOS. That can be changed to the settings as well. So then I'm going to complicate things just a little bit. Let's say I want to take one image, say at, I'm going to lower that down at 1/50th of a second, followed by a second image, let's say 1/400, and I'm going to lower the ISO. Let's see what that does. So BackyardEOS will take 2 images, but in between images, it will actually change the setting of your camera. So that becomes pretty useful if you want to take bulb images at different ISO. So one line item would be ISO, let's say 1600, and the other would be 800. And BackyardEOS will actually change those in between. So let's say I'm going to take 2 images of that one and then 1 of that one. I'm just going to press start. So now it's taking 1 out of 3 image.
I notice you have a shutter and a duration there.
Yes.
I would think shutter and duration are the same thing, but shutter is actually what you set it on, and duration is how, like bulb would be a shutter.
You see here, duration is grayed out.
Okay.
Okay. So the duration field is actually only enabled when you select bulb. So because I've chosen a TV value here, which is a time value, duration is implicit in that time value. If I was to choose, let's say I'm going to go up. I'm going to select bulb. Then I could say, okay, so this is now a 60-second shot. If you want to disable a line, you just set the number for that line to 0, and it automatically disables that. It keeps the values, but it disables it. In this case, let's say I'm going to take let's say a 6-second bulb shot. So it will be overexposed, that's for sure, because I'm in-house. But let's give it a try. So now it's going to go for about 6 seconds.
And I don't want to interrupt your flow, but this is for Canon cameras. You also have a version for Nikon?
Yes, I do. I actually have my Nikon. I actually have my Nikon 7000 connected right now, and since you brought it up, I'm going to fire up my Nikon. Backyard Nikon, by the way, has not been released yet. It's been in beta since, I think I released it last, I'm going to say April. It could be off by a month, but in April, about what, 4 or 5 months ago. And I'm at beta 2E right now. I still have a few issues, but it will definitely hit production quality before Christmas. So I'm going to fire Backyard Nikon. You're going to see a lot of similarities between BackyardEOS and Backyard Nikon. So I'm going to leave BackyardEOS in the background in white, and I've preset the color for Backyard Nikon to be a yellowish. I'm not sure if you can see that difference on your side. So it's pretty much the same interface. I'm going to connect the camera. And so this is Backyard Nikon. I don't have my D-sub cable, so I'm going to select just a TV value here, and I'm going to snap a picture. Again, this is Backyard Nikon connected to a D7000 right now. And I've got that one pointed at a at an Nikon box as opposed to a Canon box. So this is Backyard Nikon. If you look at the features, it looks almost identical. I'm in frame and focus now, which is live view. Look, I'm going to put my hand right in front of the viewfinder. Planetary mode, drift align. So it's pretty much the same product.
It's the same thing and everything else like that.
There is a few subtle differences because there's a few features Nikon does not support that Canon does. So those features are not there, but they're very subtle feature. The average imager won't even notice that they're not there. The important thing is the image capture plan works just the same. So I'm going to minimize Backyard Nikon, and I'm going to get back to my BackyardEOS. So here basically I have the power to program the number of exposures I want. Let's say I want to have 25 exposures followed by say 10 exposures at ISO 1600. Let's say this is 10 minutes, and let's say these are going to be, I don't know, 5 minutes. And then I could easily add another one here, just change a different ISO. So in this particular case, if I were to press start, if I do the sum of 25 plus 10 plus 1, that gives me 36 exposure. So if I would press start here, I'm doing right now 1 out of 36 exposure. As you can see, there's a big progress center right here. It's in your face. It's huge because sometimes you're, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 feet away from your computer, and you want to see just at a glance how far you're into your imaging session. And this basically is big enough that you can see from several feet away. So in this particular case, I'm gonna, well, obviously abort because I don't want to run that session entirely. It's 36 pictures. But before I do, there's an estimated finish time here at it says 1:49. So that's about what, 3 hours from now. So this session would run for about 3 hours nonstop, given the parameter I've given my session in the program center. So I'm going to go ahead and import that. It's 60 some seconds, so it will be washed out. So the histogram is going to be way on the right side. Yeah, it fell off completely. It's oversaturated. But it gives you an idea of how easy it is to actually tell the camera to take a series of pictures at different settings between pictures. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to reset my my capture plan center. I'm going to press reset here. So it goes back, it clears everything as if nothing had happened. So what I'm going to do now is, there's your thumbnail here at the bottom of all the images I've taken. You can actually click on any of the image, and it will automatically be loaded again into the image center here. A question I get asked a lot is, why can't I zoom in my image? I only have two options here: make it fit or make it 100%. Make it fit 100%. I don't have any controls or sliders to make it beyond that. Well, that's because I made it just like Google Map. If you can put your cursor anywhere, and I'm using my wheel mouse here. Let's say I'm going to put it here on the barcode, and I'm going to use my wheel mouse. You can zoom in like I'm close to I'm over 1,000% here, just using the wheel mouse. And the actual zoom is centered where the cursor here is. Right now I'm going to put the cursor right here besides the C. I'm not sure if you can see that, but I'm actually going to zoom on the C. So that's a neat feature. Just use your wheel mouse to actually do your zoom in and zoom out. Now, a lot of you don't even have mouse when you're in the field because you've got a laptop and all you're using is the actual mouse pad on your laptop, which by default doesn't have a wheel mouse. Well, you can actually place your cursor anywhere and use the page up and page down button to zoom in or zoom out. In this particular case, I got my cursor right on the D of 60D, and I'm going to press page up just a few times to actually do the zoom. So there you go. So it zooms and it zooms out just by pressing page up and page down.
Guylain, we did get one question on the Google page.
Shoot.
Nebulosity has a, this is from Dylan O'Donnell. Nebulosity has a nice feature where you can do a fine focus by selecting a star and seeing a histogram instead of visual focusing. Is there something similar with BackyardEOS?
There is. There is. So now I'm in the frame and focus mode. So just to answer the question, look, if I put my hand in front, so this is live view. Here, I'm not sure if you're going to see, but if I do a right click on the mouse, do you guys see the square cursor right underneath the word Canon right now on the image? There's a squared cursor.
For a second we did, and then it disappeared.
Yeah, okay. So the cursor in BackyardEOS is not your typical arrow when you're actually pointing on the image. It's a square, and the center of that square is actually where if you do a right mouse click where the cursor is, it actually prompts you whatever is at that location with a live histogram. So right now I'm moving my cursor on the barcode on the letters, and you see that the letters here are big there, right? And you see the histogram live as you focus. But this is not the typical way that the focus is engineered in BackyardEOS. You've got your zoom box in the upper right corner here, which right now points at the center of the star or of the frame. Let's say that the star is right here. There's a little dot here, right? So let's say that this is the star. So I'm going to double click. By the way, I just displaced or moved the zoom box position, and to do that, you double click, and then you move it to wherever you want it to be. Not sure if I'm going too fast here because of the internet connection. And then when I find my star, I can actually double click again to lock it. And that means that whatever star I was looking at, it actually is showing up in the upper zoom box here. And right in the bottom right corner, there's another image with a star or a diagram that represents the star shape here. This is actually the area where the data is being pulled from to calculate the full width half maximum. That's the number 7.8, 7.7, 7.6 that you're seeing here. It bounced a little bit because this is live, and as I put my hand in front, so the number is going to change because it can't locate the star or the dot on the red box. So you would typically adjust focus. This is your fine focus here, the zoom box center, and those numbers here. That's your fine focus, and you would actually adjust focus. And the idea is to get the lowest possible number over time as you're focusing for a single star. There's actually no value in trying to compare that number with your best friend that is sitting right beside you, that is using a different star, a different scope. He's getting a lower number than you, and you're confused because you can't get as a number as low as he's getting. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you get the lowest possible number on the star, on the equipment that you're currently using to focus. So in this case, I'm going to adjust focus manually. So can I do this here? So you see the number just increased and the star is almost all washed out. So as I focus, the number goes down, the number goes down, and number goes up again. Oh, I went beyond focus. So the idea is to actually use live view to actually monitor your fine focus. So hopefully that answers the question. Unlike nebulosity, the fine focus in BackyardEOS is not a different screen. It's not a different option. It actually is always on. It is always on.
Guylain, you were just now reaching up and grabbing your lens and focusing it, right? With your hand?
Yes, yes, because it's a lens that I've got on right now, not on a scope, right? So it's just a lens. So I was manually adjusting it, and I did that on purpose because when there's a lens connected, you see those options here. Those options here are actually the lens control. I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going way out of focus. I'm going to click on that one, and I'm going to go in focus and way out of focus again. So this is how you would actually focus if you have a lens.
And those are just indicating the speed at which you're going to move it.
Exactly. Fast, medium, slow. One step at a time, a couple of steps, and as fast as I can. So I'm going to get close to focus here, just with this one. And then I can actually use these very small step. Okay, so see my full width half maximum started increasing again, so I was going the wrong way. So now I'm just going to try and bring it down to 7.5. See, it's still going down just a bit. Okay, it seems to be pretty stuck there, which means I'm probably dead focus right now. Because if I would go any further, full width half maximum would start to increase again, meaning I went beyond focus. Now, if you have the premium edition, which is what I've got here right now, you have a few more options for focusing. You've got a half flux diameter. And button of mask or button of grabber, whatever you want to call it. Half width, half flux diameter, sorry, works pretty much the same way as full width half maximum in terms of focusing. In that you need to get the lowest number possible over time for the same star. The difference between full width half maximum and half flux diameter is half flux diameter takes into account noise, where a full width half maximum does not. So does it matter which one you choose? No. Use the one that works for you, for your equipment, for your condition, and so forth. Personally, I use full width half maximum, but I've got some users that swear by the half flux diameter, and that's good. But personally, I use the full width half maximum. Standard deviation. The actual benefit of standard deviation is if you're focusing on a bright object like the moon, where full width half maximum and half flux diameter would not work because the moon is so big. It works pretty much the same way. The only difference is you're going to work with the higher feedback typically. So if I come here, I get a big number. If I go out of focus, the number gets smaller. So basically, you are in focus when you have the highest possible number over time as you are adjusting focus. So this is great if you're focusing on the moon. Use standard deviation and work with the highest possible number you can get over time, and adjust focus accordingly, and eventually you'll hit that focus. So that's basically your fine focus that exists in BackyardEOS. It is live. It is not a separate feature, a separate window. It is always there. Sometimes you're going to be focusing on a very, very, very dim star or dim object. Then in that case, you can actually revert to taking pictures as opposed to live view. And taking pictures works just the same as it did in imaging mode. Here I can set it to take a bulb picture of 1 second. It's going to go ahead and take that one picture. It's probably going to be washed out because I'm inside. 1 second is long. There you go. So it's a bit brighter. There's a neat little loop feature here. The loop feature is useful to give you the opportunity to just tell BackyardEOS to take pictures after pictures as you adjust focus. So here I'm just going to change focus in between pictures. I've adjusted focus. It's going to take another a series of pictures automatically. So this one is out of focus, so I need to adjust focus. So the loop feature is pretty neat when a star is too dim for live view, and you still want to have an automated way of telling BackyardEOS to just go ahead, take pictures as I adjust focus. I'll come back and I'll press abort when I'm done.
Does the camera allow a subframe? So where you only download a portion?
No. No, that is actually not necessary. That is not possible for DSLR to do subframe download. You actually download the image that the camera is giving you.
Are you downloading JPEGs there? They're a little bit faster. Or?
I do. If you look in the camera information center, I've got it set at small JPEG. By default, each time you go into the focus center, I will automatically set the image quality to small JPEG. And it's for that purpose exactly, to speed up the download time. If I go back into imaging mode, just a second, look at the image quality. It went back to raw and large JPEG. I'm going to go back into frame and focus mode. And look at the image center, it automatically set it to a small JPEG.
But so I can change that if I choose.
You can, well, it all depends. You can tell BackyardEOS to leave the image quality alone. And then BackyardEOS will never change it for you. But as far as focusing is concerned, there's actually no real benefit to taking a large JPEG as opposed to a small JPEG for
No, I'm thinking more along the lines of I get to tell it what kind of frames I want saved on the main imaging run. When I start a sequence of images, I may for some reason just want small JPEGs and the full RAWs and the small JPEGs, or no RAW at all for some things.
Yeah, okay. So BackyardEOS is geared towards the beginner, or it's easy enough for the beginner to just use the software and make as little mistake as possible. But it's powerful enough for the seasoned imager to actually set those values on their own. So by default, I'm going to go into the settings screens now. Again, don't be, for those that haven't seen BackyardEOS in the past, don't be afraid about all those settings. I just want to prove a point here. There is an option here called image quality. The default is RAW plus JPEG. The options are RAW plus JPEG, JPEG only, or in camera. If you choose in camera, you're telling BackyardEOS, you know what? I don't want you to change the image quality for me. I am big enough, I'm tall enough. I will actually set the image quality using the camera menu, and BackyardEOS will leave it alone. It will never attempt to change the image quality. So that's how you would do it. So if that's what you want to do, what I would do initially, I just want to check something. Okay, raw JPEG. What I would do initially is sorry. So you just basically have to select in camera, and then if I go to frame and focus, you'll notice image quality stays at raw and large JPEG. And no matter what I do, BackyardEOS will never attempt to change it. So if I can actually access the menu option in the camera right now, and if I were to change that, actually I will. So I'm using the menu right now. You can't see it, but I'm going to change the image quality. I'm going to change it to medium, and I'm about to press the button. And as I press the button, if you look in the camera information center, it's going to change to medium raw. There you go. It changed to medium raw. And if I were to start an imaging plan right now, because I've got it set to in camera, it would take my imaging run in medium JPEG only. So let's take one actually. So there you go. So this is actually a JPEG. If you look at the upper left corner of the image center, I've got the image file name here, and it's actually a JPEG file. And if I would look into my download folder, I'm going to sort them by date because I want the... So this is my JPEG file here that I just did. And if I look at the file size, it is significantly smaller than the other JPEG file for MAG 1.5. So hopefully that did answer your question. But you can't, one thing that you cannot do is actually set it to any possible value using the BackyardEOS user interface. If you select in camera, it is up to you to actually change it to the value you want. And the reason is I wanted to cater to the beginner initially, but the in camera gives you the option for the advanced one.
Thank you. You know, Adam, are you monitoring over in group chat? Can you see those? I can't hear you, Adam.
I'm sorry, I'm about to bring it up. Two questions, Guylain. Tim S., I see at the moment you do not have an ASCOM focuser up and running yet. It appears that BYE will control the focuser on the scope if it is hooked up, correct?
Yes.
He is in the process of setting up a JMI.
Yes. Yes, actually, what I'm going to do now, because you asked a question, and I like the interactivity of this session, I'm going to start another instance of BackyardEOS. So I got BackyardEOS. I showed you Backyard and Icon a couple of minutes ago. Now I'm going to start another one, but here it says simulator. And the reason why there's a simulator, you guys don't get to use that one, but when I do presentation, I like to use the simulator because I've got built-in images that shows you the focus and out of focus and stuff like that. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to start up the simulator. And the simulator is the same, it's BackyardEOS, except that it connects to a fake camera. So you guys can see the green BackyardEOS?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, so the green means it's a simulator camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it to a camera. Here it says simulator, but now I'm going to connect it. I'm going to connect an ASCOM focuser as well. There's also ASCOM filter wheel, ASCOM telescope. Filter wheel, that's because I've got a mono camera and I actually use filters at my DSLR. So ASCOM filter wheel is there. I'm going to use the ASCOM focuser. So I'm going to connect to, okay, I've got the simulator right there right now. So there you go. So I've got my simulator focuser right now. So if you would have a Moonlight focuser, then the only difference is you would have selected the Moonlight focuser here. So whatever focuser driver you have that drives your motorized focuser, if it has an ASCOM driver, you can use it in BackyardEOS. So I'm going to go ahead and go and frame and focus. Again, this is my simulator camera, so it actually has a focus or a star out of focus here. And as I adjust focus, you see I'm going inside focus. So my star looks like a donut right here. I'm going to remove the crosshair so that you guys can see that a bit more, and I'm going to increase that just a bit. So there's my star that's out of focus. And I'm going to use my ASCOM controller. Right now it shows step 9,160. So I'm going to go plus 100. Not enough, another plus 100. So now you can see that the star is getting tighter and tighter, and you can actually, the full width, you can see the full width maximum here, the number bouncing around 9.8, 9.9. And you can actually see the star shape here as well live. So if I go another 100, it's still a bit tighter. See the full width maximum is now going down. I'm going to go back 100 still. Full width half maximum is now 7.5, 7. Okay, so you can see it's affected by seeing now because the number is bouncing just a bit. Doesn't really matter as long as you get the lowest possible number over time. So I'm going to go back to another 100. 6.2, pretty stable. Oh, you see the number is starting to increase, so now I'm going over and beyond focus, so I need to come back. So that's basically how you would use, or how easy it is to use an ASCOM focuser within BackyardEOS. Again, this is your fine focus here, and it is live. It is not a separate feature. It is always on when you are in the frame and focus mode. That's the purpose of that mode. It shows you the big view here, and wherever that square is, again, I can double click and move it around, right? So if your star is not dead center in your field of view, if your star is in that corner, then if you double click and move the square around, you can actually bring the fine focus zoom box where the star is. So you don't have to actually bring the star in the center. Bring the zoom box to the star instead. And then I'm double click again, and it's being locked. So that's how you would actually use your ASCOM focuser in BackyardEOS to focus. So again, that zoom box enter works just the same if I would take snap images instead of live view. Sometimes live view is just not enough to bring the actual star out because it's just too dim. Okay, so did that answer the question?
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm just going to close the simulator, and then I'm going to go back to my live BackyardEOS. So there you go. I close the simulator, back to BackyardEOS, where my Canon 1000D is connected to.
Guylain, there was one other question from Sean. When I try to use Botnov, the lines jump all over rapidly. Does that focus method need good seeing or shorter focal length? He's imaging at 1700 millimeters.
Yeah, the Botnov feature. I'm gonna start up the. I'm gonna start the simulator again.
I should have stopped you.
No, that's okay. Gives me time to breathe. I'm gonna connect the simulator again. Go back into frame and focus mode. I'm gonna remove the crosshair here, and I'm gonna click Botnov. Yeah, so the lines are going all over the place. Well, calculating those lines mathematically is not easy. There's a lot of number crunching going in the background. It is quite hard to actually use the Botnov feature. Sorry, using live view. You really need a bright star, and you probably need to be focusing at a shorter focal length than 1700, because 1700, that's maybe not that. Well, it all depends on what the focal ratio is. If it's a 5 or something, then it's fast enough for light to come in. But typically, what I do when I use the Botnov feature, I actually snap a picture. Why? Because I'm getting more in this case it's a simulator, so snapping a picture gives me a live view frame still. But the reason is a live view frame has barely 10 to 20 milliseconds worth of data that's hitting the sensor. That is not a lot of light. There's just enough that we can do some number crunching, but it's usually not enough. The Botnov feature works a lot better when you snap a 1-second image, because then there's sufficient light, the spikes do show up, and the line will actually show up accordingly. Don't worry, like in this particular case, this is actually a good example. If I look at that, you see the red line is not necessarily centered with the X. Even if you're perfectly focused with a bottom of mask, that red line might not be fully centered. That is not as important as the bottom of error that you see here at the top. That is the number that you should be focusing on when you actually use the bottom feature. And typically, you want to get a bottom pixel error of less than 0.5, or as close to 0 as possible. If you get 0 on any specific run, I'll buy you a beer, because I was never able to get a perfect 0, because there's a few more parameters that comes into play. But typically, you want to have a number that is very, very, very close to 0. And when it is very close to 0, you'll actually see a green circle show up, which is you're within the critical focus range. So hopefully that did answer the question. So yes, it is normal that the numbers, not the numbers, but the line go all over the place. That's because seeing is playing a big factor in these calculations. And if you take a snap image instead, you're going to get a better representation, a lot more data that can be analyzed by BackyardEOS, and you have a bigger chance of getting your focus right where the critical zone is.
I haven't seen this feature yet on my version of BackyardEOS, but
the bottom feature is a version 3 feature. It came out about 14 months ago, and it is only in the premium edition.
Okay. But it's a virtual bottom mask. I'm not sticking my bat mask up.
Oh no, you have to stick your bottom mask there. Okay. Because the spikes produced by the mask is what is being analyzed here.
Okay. So you do, in fact. Okay.
You do need the mask. Without the mask, it's useless.
So those yellow and orange lines I see there are actually representing the bat lines. Exactly.
So now they're all over the place because I presume live view. They're all over the place because I'm obviously there's no line to analyze. But typically those would closely match those of the real bottom mask. Okay. In fact, I'm going to see if I can actually load. I think I have. Okay, so I'm just going to minimize this. I think I have an image here. Can I load that? No, I can't. Okay. I was going to try and fake an image or load an image with the bottom of spikes on, but I can't. I'm live this demo right now. Okay, so now I'm back to my live camera. So there's a few things that I wanna show you guys. I'm not sure if you've seen in the Camera Information Center, but there's a number here, plus 34 degrees Celsius. I'm in Canada, so I'm using Celsius and not Fahrenheit, but that you can set that up to Fahrenheit if you want in the settings dialog. So this is the actual camera sensor. I say actual with a grain of salt. It is not the real current temperature of the sensor. Unfortunately, Canon does not have a function in their software development kit for us to access that value, but fortunately that value is being put into the EXIF metadata of every image. So each time you actually take an image, I actually take a reading of the camera sensor and I update this information here in the information center. So now it was 34. Let's see what it's at after an image download. So now I haven't used live view in a few minutes on my camera, so the sensor and the camera is actually 30 degrees Celsius, which was about 34 on the previous image I took. And the actual temperature is also inserted in your file name here. So if you can see, it's light 1 second, ISO 1600, and then I've got the temperature here. So the file name, again, is pretty powerful. It's packed with information. So just by looking at your folders of images the day after a night imaging, you can actually get a lot of data just by looking at the file name. You know the ISO, you know if it's a light or a dark, you know the duration, you know the temperature of the sensor, you know the time it was taken. So that is a lot of work that's done for you in just naming your images. So speaking of file name, I'm now going to go into the settings dialog. Again, don't be afraid by all the images that you see here, but the first option is file name template. The default template is actually my preferred template, but just because it's my preferred template, it doesn't mean that it's yours. In fact, I can guarantee it's probably not going to be yours. BackyardEOS gives you the opportunity to actually change that default template. In this case, I'm just going to click the ellipsis icon at the far right of the file name template field. And I've got the file name template editor that shows up. I can have up to 10 lines or 10 name items and a unique identifier. And here at the bottom, I show you what the actual image looks like. So I've got a list of options I can choose from: target, frame type, duration, ISO, temperature, standard deviation, full width, half maximum, and so on and so on. Lots of information that can be added into the file name. So you can actually create the file name that you want. If you don't want that target file name to show up there, you want the target file name to be at the tail end of it, you can. You choose. So that's a pretty powerful editor to name your file as you choose, as you like. The default folder that BackyardEOS will download images to is actually in My Pictures, BackyardEOS. You can change that default if you want. Some like to actually have the download folder into a portable USB drive that they connect to their laptop. You can do that as well. You can also have subfolders. I'm gonna actually create, or I'm gonna choose date style folder on purpose, and then I'm gonna take an image and I'm gonna show you the difference that it does. Filter list. Let's say I've got a list of filters that I use on a regular basis. I may have an IDAS filter, I may have an HA filter, and I may have I don't know, maybe a sky glow filter. So I've just entered 3 filters here. They were space delimited, and I'm going to save that. I'm going to get back to the settings dialog in just a minute, but I want to show you the impact that this particular setting had. The date folder. Oops, sorry, I changed it. Date folder 2 and the HA. So I'm going to save that. Then I'm going to direct you to the Capture Plan Center again. The filter dropdown now has 3 options. So this is how you pre-fill the filter field based on the filters that you currently have or often use. So let's say when I'm imaging M33 and I'm using I don't know, my IDAS filter for that particular one, and I'm going to go ahead and take a picture or start my plan. It's taking the picture, downloading. So now if you look at the file name, it's M33 because that's my target name. But if we go all the way inside here, I've got IDAS. That's because based on my file name template, I had the filter in there, and whatever information I have here actually shows up in that location. I can actually, if I don't have a list, I can actually type my filter manually. Let's say I've got a I got, I don't know, a hue tech filter. You can actually type it in. You don't have to actually use the pre-filled values and settings. So I'm going to go back to settings. Sorry, not go back to settings, but now I want to go back into my download folder. Again, download folder, the default is located into My Pictures, BackyardEOS. I have here a shortcut to that folder. And remember, when I selected date time 2, it was by target name, by dates. So I'm just going to change that view here, put that to detail. And then those are my actual images. So that's the image I just took with the IDAS filter M33. BackyardEOS respected your setting of date style 2, which was by target and then by date. So it created those subfolders for you in your download folders, and it dropped the images right there. Okay. Now, the histogram. A lot of people, I'm going to click on an image on the thumbnail that is a bit less. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag an image of M33, which is a single frame, unprocessed, and I believe it was 8 minutes. So I'm going to, it's right here on my desktop, I'm going to drag it and I'm going to drop it in the image center. And BackyardEOS will automatically load that image. So this is a single image, 8-minute M33 that I actually took, I'm going to say about 3 weeks ago. So here you see the histogram is actually about 1/3 in from the left, which is typically a good area. This is what you want to be aiming at in terms of determining the exposure, if you're under or overexposed. An overexposed picture, let's say I'm going to come here, look at the histogram. The red is actually falling off the histogram. The green is about 1/3 in, and the blue is about 3/4 in from the left. This is your first indicator that you are overexposed. At the other end of the spectrum, I'm going to click on the first image here, which is completely black. I barely see some red, and the green and blue don't even register on the histogram. That is your first clue that your image is underexposed. So this one is too short, this one is too big, but this one is actually reasonable because the histogram is about 1/3 in. You can tell that this camera is a modified camera because the red channel is a bit more exposed, or a bit more to the right compared to the blue and green channel. The green channel is just underneath the blue, so you don't actually see the green hump here. BackyardEOS, in the premium edition, you have a small control to actually do some screen stretch. So if I were to just play with these are just screen stretched, by the way. They are not saved into your image. So if you've got a very faint image and you're trying to see if you're pulling some data in, you can actually just screen stretch your image to determine if you've got enough exposure or not enough exposure. But typically the histogram is your best friend. You should rely on the histogram to determine if your exposure is over or underexposed. About 1/3 in from the left is what you want to aim for. So I'm just going to click reset here. Some like to see the image in black and white or luminance only, especially if they're focusing. If you click the L button here, it's actually just going to show you a black and white image, and so is the histogram. So there's only one hub now, and it's about luminosity as opposed to the RGB channel. Build number 2 here, basically it shows you the number of lines in the histogram, either 1. Now I've got 3 lines, 0 line, 1 line in the center, and then the default 2 lines. Any questions?
I haven't seen any new ones.
Okay. Okay, so now there is a there's one thing in BackyardEOS is BackyardEOS will never ever delete an image for you, and that is a design decision I've made a long time ago. A lot of people have asked me, can you add a delete feature? I know that this particular image here I don't want to keep, I want to delete it. BackyardEOS will not delete your image. And the reason is I don't want users to come back to me next week or next month or next year and say, you know what, BackyardEOS deleted images for me. I didn't want that image to be deleted. So I categorically do not delete images. But if you have the premium edition, you can actually mark images as good, bad, or maybe and stuff like that. So the thumbnail at the bottom is actually active. If I right-click on any image, like I'm going to right-click on this one, right-click on this one here, it actually gives me an option to rename images. The default is unmarked, and then I can select it good, maybe bad, or delete. Delete won't delete the file. It will just mark it as delete. And by that, I mean I actually changed the name of the file. So let's say this image here is terrible. I don't want it. I'm going to mark it as delete. So if you look in the upper left corner, the actual file name was renamed, and it has a prefix delete now. So if I were to go into Windows, where my images are, I should have one here called delete. There you go. So it put delete in front of the name. So I'm just going to toss that here to the side, and I'm going to rename that image again, and I'm going to say, oh no, you know what, I may want to keep it. Let's say it's bad, it's not good, or even better, I'm going to say it, maybe I want to keep that image. The thumbnail here at the bottom actually says maybe as well. And now my image starts by maybe. So you can actually use BackyardEOS as you're taking images to actually look at your image in your thumbnail and decide if you want to keep it or not, knowing that it's only a file rename, and BackyardEOS will never delete your images. Okay. There's an option as well called preview. Initially, when you start your imaging session, you don't want to take an image immediately. You're looking at framing your galaxy or your target into your field of view, and you basically just want to take a quick image. Preview will actually take the first image in your plan, and that's it. And it will also take it in JPEG mode, so that it's faster to download. So in this case, let's say I've got, I'm going to create a plan here. So I've got 2 lines here. Let's say I'm going to put 14, ISO 100, duration 1 second, and I click preview. Notice the camera information center. It automatically set the image quality to large JPEG instead of RAW, because they're faster to download. And in this particular case, the preview option is there only to help you center your target. So it's for that reason that I only take the first image in your plan, and it will be in a large JPEG as opposed to RAW. Okay. The next item I'd like to go on is actually dithering and how to set up BackyardEOS to do dithering. So before I show you the how-to, I just want to make a few precision on dithering. BackyardEOS does not dither, contrary to a lot of what people think. It does not dither. PhD does. What BackyardEOS does is it actually talks to PhD, and it tells PhD, it instructs PhD to actually do the dithering. Why? Because PhD has all the logic, and PhD is the one that has connection to your mount. BackyardEOS is there to control your camera, PhD is there to guide and has the built-in feature to do dithering. So in order to do dithering, you first need to be guiding using PhD. So if you're not guiding, you cannot dither. It's that simple. So you need to be guiding first before you can dither. So I'm going to start up Backyard, not BackyardEOS, but I'm going to start up PhD. So dithering works just the same, PhD 1 versus PhD 2. It's been tried, tested, and true in both version of PhD. So in this particular laptop, I've got an older version of PhD, but that's besides the point. Bottom line is you need to be guiding, and you need to make sure that you click Tools and you go here and you click Enable Server in PhD. You only need to do this once, and when you do, Windows is going to prompt you with a firewall warning, blah, 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 PhD is trying to access blah, blah, blah. Say yes. I repeat, say yes. If you do not say yes, then the actual port will be closed and BackyardEOS will not be able to talk to PhD. If BackyardEOS cannot talk to PhD, you cannot dither. So make sure that Enable Server is on, and make sure that you're guiding first. In this particular case, I really want to demonstrate how easy it is to do dithering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect to a simulator camera in PhD. I got PhD here. Obviously, I'm inside, so I can't do the calibration. But in order to guide, I got to put some calibration. So I'm going to enter some calibration data manually. It doesn't really matter what I do, what I put in. I just want to make guiding work, or simulate guiding in-house, so that I can show you how dithering works. So there you go, 2.1. I'm going to put that. So there you go. If I come here, so I should be guiding. So there you go. So now I'm guiding using phony data, but that's beside the point. The important thing is I'm actually guiding. In BackyardEOS, the default settings for dithering are good for almost any setup. So if you're not sure what the parameters are, if I go in dither in settings, there's an entire panel here dedicated to dithering. If you're not sure what those values are, leave them at their default value. They work for 99% of every setup out there. So don't worry about what those numbers are until you understand what dithering is, because the default values are pretty darn good. And the way you tell BackyardEOS to dither between images, you just make sure that the dither icon here, the PhD icon here, is actually enabled. Now it's enabled, disable. That's all you need to do. There's no action taken when you click that button, but what it does is I'm going to start a capture plan. I'm going to put that to 0. I'm going to start a capture plan here with, let's say, 3 images, as long as I have 2. So I've got 2 images here of 1 second each. So it's going to take an image, and then it's going to go through the process of dithering, which basically means BackyardEOS, see, it says now it's dithering, so it sees numbers here, right? So I'm going to minimize here. So I've got PhD here. BackyardEOS is trying to dither. Because I'm inside, it's not a real star, it's not a real telescope. You see the numbers here, they're kind of stuck at 2.55. In the real world, those numbers are always going to start at 2.55, and they're going to go down until dithering is complete. In this particular case, it's never going to go down because it won't move that much because I'm inside. But typically, that's how easy dithering is in BackyardEOS. You start your guiding, you make sure that you've got enable server, and again, you only need to do that once on your computer. Once that's done, you do your guiding as you normally would and start a capture plan, and you make sure that that button is on and it does dithering. Here I'm going to just abort the dithering. And it aborted the capture plan as I clicked abort. So so that's how you would dither. And the advantage of doing dithering is that it actually moves the guide star in a random direction between images. So what that does is actually moves the noise around as well, so that when you stack your images, when you align all of your stars, because of dithering, the noise is going to be all over the place, and it's going to stack itself out a lot better when you do your stacking. So your noise is going to more or less disappear a lot easier when you do dithering. You still have, and you should still do dark calibration even though you're doing dithering, because dithering will actually take care of noise, but it won't take care of dead pixel that much. So you should always do your dark subtraction as well when you do your calibration, and still use dark, still use bias and whatnot. But dithering, there's a saying out there, dither or die. So do your dithering. If you're using PhD to guide, it really makes a difference on bringing the noise down considerably. It really makes a difference, and it's not complicated. Do your guiding, enable server, make sure that that button is on. You can actually have that button set on automatically at startup. So I just click. Sorry, I went too fast. So I just click the settings dialog here, and in the PhD guider settings, there's the first option, dither at startup. That's probably the only option you should turn on or modify in the default installation if you're not comfortable with dithering. At least click that one so that you don't forget that this option, you don't forget to turn it on. It will all automatically be on for you. And don't worry if you've got dithering on and you're not guiding, or you don't need to guide, or you don't have an auto guider. Sorry, I went too fast here. The dithering process in BackyardEOS will always attempt to create a connection to PhD, and if it doesn't, if it can't connect to PhD, it just ignores the dithering. It goes on and proceeds to the next image. So there's no harm in having the PhD button if you're not dither, if you're not guiding. BackyardEOS will just ignore it, fail gracefully, and move on to the next image. Any questions on dithering, on how to use that feature in BackyardEOS?
I don't see any questions on dithering.
Awesome.
You know, let me remind the viewers, the people who aren't in this session, you can post your questions on the Google Plus page, and we'll get to them.
Okay. There's actually also another important feature in imaging, and it's trying to frame your target dead center. Here I'm going to click on my image of M33. Here you see M33 is pretty much dead center, so it's properly framed. I should have actually rotated the camera so that the galaxy would have been more more nicely framed, because now it's a bit of an angle, but it's too late for that. The image is taken. But what you can do is BackyardEOS Premium Edition also has integration with Astro Tortilla. Astro Tortilla is free plate solving software, and plate solving software, it's plate solving. It's a complicated word for a simple task. And the simple task is it frames your target dead center. So the galaxy is in the center, and it's not in the upper right corner or the upper left corner. It is actually centered. I'm not going to go into the details on how to use Astro Tortilla, because that could be in a session on its own, and it's not my software. It would be up to the owner to actually do that presentation. But I will go through the process of how to trigger or how to use Astro Tortilla so that it can actually take a picture using BackyardEOS to do its plate solving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start Astro Tortilla. So Astro Tortilla is here. I don't have a telescope connected, so I'm gonna, so I'm gonna choose an ASCOM just so that I have something connected. Oh, so that didn't work. Oh, there you go. Astro Tortilla just went Does work on me. Okay, so that didn't work. So I'm going to leave the connecting the telescope on. But in terms of camera option, Astro Tortilla gives you several options. It gives you BackyardEOS, astrophotography tool, screen capture, Maxim DL, and so on and so on. Of course, we're going to be selecting BackyardEOS. So just like BackyardEOS was talking to PhD to do dithering, Astro Tortilla can talk to BackyardEOS to instruct BackyardEOS to take a picture, and then that picture is going to be transferred to Astro Tortilla, and then Astro Tortilla is going to use it to plate solve the image. So in shorter word, it's going to use the image to figure out if that galaxy is dead center or if it's on the side, and if it's on the side, it will actually use the telescope command to bring that galaxy towards the center as much as possible, and then instruct BackyardEOS to take another picture. So remember when I said that you had to go into PhD and enable server? Well, you have to do the same thing in BackyardEOS. The default setting is off. So sorry, I went a bit too fast. So I'm going to access the setting dialog again. And in the far right, there's a third-party integration. There's enable TCP server. I need to enable that. If I do not enable that, it means that Astro Tortilla will not be able to communicate with BackyardEOS. So I'm going to set that option. And then you see there's a message here. Changing enable TCP server will take effect at next startup, which means I actually need to restart BackyardEOS for that option to take place. There are very, very, very few options. In fact, there's only 2 options that requires a BackyardEOS restart. There is the enable TCP server, and there is changing the language. So if you change the language to any of the supported language, you need to restart BackyardEOS for the language to change. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close BackyardEOS. I'm going to start BackyardEOS again. So look what it did. There's a Windows security alert, and it's now asking me if I want to allow a port open on BackyardEOS so that Astro Tortilla can communicate to BackyardEOS. You need to select allow access. If you do not, Astro Tortilla will not be able to communicate with BackyardEOS. So this is not even a choice. You have no choice, otherwise Astro Tortilla will not work. So I'm going to click allow access. I'm going to reconnect my camera. And you only need to do this once. Now enable TCP server is on, so I don't need to do it again. So now I'm going to come here. I'm going to click setup. I've chosen BackyardEOS. I'm going to click setup. So there's a few options here. Astro Tortilla wants to tell BackyardEOS to take an image at ISO 800. Timeout, that's a setting from Astro Tortilla, and then you've got the BackyardEOS address and port number. If I go back into BackyardEOS, click on the setting icon, look at the default port number here, 1499. And if I go back to Astro Tortilla, the default is 1499. When I was working with the Astro Tortilla team to actually do the integration, we just had to come up with a standard number that I would set as a default in BackyardEOS and that the Astro Tortilla team would use. In this case, we just chose for 1499. So that's very important. If you change that number here, you actually need to go back in that BackyardEOS and change that number again and restart BackyardEOS and accept the firewall warning again. But that's just to establish communication. So in this case, everything is fine. I'm telling Astro Tortilla to take a 5-second shot using Astro Tortilla. So I'm going to click capture and solve. See, I press capture and solve in Astro Tortilla, and all of a sudden BackyardEOS is taking a picture. of 5 seconds. So now that image, if you look at Astro Tortilla, that image has been transferred to Astro Tortilla, and Astro Tortilla is trying to actually do the plate solving. It won't work because this is obviously not a night sky picture, and I don't even have a telescope connected. But this is how you instruct Astro Tortilla to take a picture using BackyardEOS so that it can use it to actually do the plate solving. In this case, I'm going to abort the plate solving because it's going to go on and on and on. It'll never solve because it can't recognize this as a star pattern. Any question on Astro Tortilla integration?
I haven't used Astro Tortilla, but does it? It'll continue to slew and solve and adjust again until it gets to within a certain.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Now, getting Astro Tortilla to work the first time could be a task on its own. It has a lot of parameters. So the first thing that you need to do is understand how Astro Tortilla works and try and do plate solving using images that you currently have. Like you took several images in your last session, use those images and you can actually feed them in Astro Tortilla. You can select here screen capture, so you just have your image displayed on screen and then you instruct Astro Tortilla to do a screen capture.
Okay.
And then you can work out the issues with Astro Tortilla getting to work. But you're right in that Astro Tortilla, once you press solve or start capture, it will talk to BackyardEOS. It will take a picture using BackyardEOS. BackyardEOS will transfer that image to Astro Tortilla. Astro Tortilla will plate solve that image, i.e. it's going to try to find how far it is from being in the center of the field of view. It is then going to instruct your mount to move in such direction to bring it as close to center as possible. Once that is done, it's going to fire an event instructing BackyardEOS to take another picture. It's going to plate solve that one. So it's going to go into a cycle, a loop of taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images, plate solving them individually until your target is dead center. And once that is done, you've plate solved and you can resume imaging knowing that whatever galaxy or nebula you're taking, it is dead center in your field of view. And it is freaking awesome if you are on a mobile setup and you want to frame the same target dead center each time you go out because you want to take multiple nights and stack those. Plate solving will allow you to frame your target dead center night after night after night.
Okay, but to use it with BackyardEOS, I actually don't use it. It uses BackyardEOS. In other words, at the beginning of my session, I go out to Astro Tortilla and say, go do your pointing thing. And when it's good and finished, it says I'm finished. And then I go back to BackyardEOS and start my sequence.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. So BackyardEOS is actually the slave in the plate solving scheme. Mm-hmm. Astro Tortilla is the master. It is calling the slave to actually take a picture.
Okay.
It's actually the roles are actually reversed with PhD and dithering, where PhD is the slave and BackyardEOS is the master in that BackyardEOS calls PhD to do dithering. Roles are reversed for Astro Tortilla. Astro Tortilla calls BackyardEOS to take a picture so that it can plate solve it.
This is Tim.
Yes.
Question about the Astro Tortilla again. Does that set the defaults, or do you have to go in there and actually make the settings?
There are some default settings, but you need to spend some time with Astro Tortilla, find the settings that works for your focal length, your focal ratio,
okay,
and stuff like that. So it is not a plug and play concept. You're probably gonna try and use it for a few nights before you actually find the parameters that works for your environment.
All right.
But once you do, it is a blessing. You'll never want to go back.
I have it, but I've never used it.
Yeah, it could be overwhelming initially. It
Yeah.
can be overwhelming initially. But there's also a feature in BackyardEOS, and not a lot of users have that, and that's actually a classic edition feature, so everybody has it. You can actually do a manual framing based on a picture that you took last night or last year of the same target, and it's called mask framing. See that mask here? That's what it does. So mask framing actually allows you, when I enable mask framing, you see there's a control here. It allows you to actually load a picture from a previous session. So I'm going to click load. I'm going to go into, I'm going to load a picture. Let's say I'm going to use this picture here. So I'm going to click it. And what it does is it actually overlays that picture on top of the current one. See, I'm going to put the opacity at 0. This is the picture that I just took. And I'm going to put the opacity of the mask image I just loaded at 100%. It's a completely different image, right? So basically what you could do is you can see that these are a bit offset. If you look at the EOS 60D, the wording, it's not at the same location, right? So you can actually use this to load an image that you took on a previous session, overlay it on top, let's say at an opacity of 50%, then take a 1-second shot or 2-second shot until there's just enough stars to show up so that you can discern a pattern and then match that pattern against the mask image that you just loaded at 50% opacity. And then you can actually nudge your scope just a little bit until you actually get a pretty reasonable framing that you did the night before or the week before. So you don't necessarily have to use plate solving to frame a target dead center. You can actually use an image that you took in your previous session and use the mask framing for that. It's a manual process. It's not automated, but it works. It really works. So that's the mask framing feature here.
Guylain, a question from Google. Do you have any plans to support MetaGuide?
I do. I'd be lying if I say I don't, but I would also be lying if I tell you that it's going to be there tomorrow. But I do have plans to support MetaGuide. Keep in mind that BackyardEOS, it's a weekend and weeknight job for me. It's a hobby. It's not my full-time day job. I have a regular job like everybody has, and this is just a hobby. It's becoming a second full-time job, but it's a weeknight and weekend gig for me. So there's just enough, or there's just so much hours I can put into it. Right now, I can tell you that I've got approximately 7,000 hours invested in BackyardEOS over the years. So if I were to redo that from scratch today, 7,000 hours is about 3.5 years, three years worth of work that I did on my spare time in the last 6 to 7 years. So yes, MetaGuide is there. There's a lot of features that I have planned, but that's one of them. Hopefully, I'll get to it in the next 12 months, but no guarantees. My focus after I've released BackyardEOS 3.1 production and Backyard Nikon is actually auto-focusing.
So what are the icons below the mask?
Good question. Okay, so before I go on the icon below the mask, I mean, let's go here on the left. So this is your zoom. We've seen that before, and I can use the mouse to actually use zoom in, zoom out. There's a neat display here, display image in full screen presentation. Over the years, I've had several requests from astronomy group that they're doing live presentation, and let's say that they're actually using live view, and this camera here, let's say that this is actually Jupiter, and they want to be showing Jupiter on the full screen. You maximize BackyardEOS, but the image basically takes, I don't know, barely 50% of the actual screen real estate. So presentation mode actually brings the image full screen, and you can actually do the zoom still. So if this would be Jupiter, then I can actually focus on Jupiter and show that to the group of people that are at the astronomy group that particular night, or an outreach program, and so on. So this is live. I'm putting my hand in front, and it actually blocks it. So that's the full screen presentation mode, where you've got the minimum controls, but it is live. So that's your full screen presentation. So I'm going to go back into imaging mode. This particular icon, it gives you a grid. You don't see the grid here. I'm going to change the color to red. No, that image is too bright, but it puts you a grid. I'm going to take a very dark image so that you can see what it does. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load an image here. See what I did? I just took an image I had on my desktop, and I just dragged it into the image box, and it loaded the image for me. So this particular one actually puts a grid pattern. I'm not sure if you can, if I zoom in, do you guys see the grid? Can you guys see the grid?
Yes, we
Yeah.
do.
Yes,
Yeah, you do. Okay, so grid off, grid on. So it can help when you're trying to center. Actually, you can tell that I'm a bit off center here if I look at the center of the galaxy, but I'm pretty darn close. So that's the grid. The Rubik's Cube is the EXIF metadata. So when you take an image, the image data is not the only thing in the actual CR2 file. There's a lot of additional data in there. So the file name, you've got all sorts of information in there. And BackyardEOS can actually add data in the EXIF component of the CR2 file, like the target name, the filter used, and a lot of information like that can be added into the file name. So that's the Rubik's Cube. The bottom part is, well, enable or disable the actual thumbnail or not. So those are the icons. If I go to frame and focus, again, whether you're in imaging, frame and focus, planetary mode, or drift alignment, I always try and keep the same concept, the same mental model in the UI design, in the user interaction. So the only thing that will change when you change mode, instead of popping windows left and right, which is one thing I hated about EOS Utility initially when I bought my 40D in 2008, was it popped windows all over the place. And this was one of the first thing that I've decided in terms of UI design is no, everything has to be in one user interface. No windows that pops up here and there. So if I go from imaging to frame and focus to planetary to drift alignment, the only thing that changes is a little bit of the image information center, but mostly all the controls at the far right changes from mode to mode, and that's basically it. And it's the same thing for the options here to the right of the image. In imaging mode, I've got some options. In frame and focus, I've got a few more options here. I can display a square. I can display, yeah, okay, so this is my square that I can move. This is my zoom box that I can have. If I don't want that zoom box to be displayed, I can hide it. It's not there anymore. Now it's there. I've got my target, and then I've got my 5x zoom and star HD, or yeah, that HD button. A lot of people don't know that that does exist. It's basically a set of controls when you're focusing on very dim stars. It allows you to change the brightness of the image, change the contrast, change the gamma. So if you have a star in your field of view that's very dim, you can experiment with those sliders, with those values in star HD. So if it's disabled, it's not there. And if you enable it, it is there. There's no magic to it though. You need to experiment, and you will get different result than your friend sitting right beside you, using different scope, different focal length, different focal ratio and whatnot. So you need to experiment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Keep in mind that a single live view frame is just a few milliseconds worth of photons. That is not a lot of data to work with. So there's just so much that these controls can pull in terms of data. So if you've got a bottom of mask, the two edge features might become handy to actually have the stars or the spikes show up. Logarit is actually a good one. This one actually does bring the very dim stars out to some extent. And then there's a stack slider here. You can actually have live view frame stack so that they become brighter and brighter. Now I'm stacking 20 live view frames right now. So I'm going to bring it back to 1. So you can actually use these controls to enhance your live view experience in order to pull those faint dim stars out into live view so that you can have a better chance of focusing on them. So these are the options that are available in the live view. Does that answer your question? I'll take that as a yes.
Some of the folks, remember, can't respond on live. They have to type in their answers.
Okay.
You've gotten several people say thanks a lot. Oh, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Things like
okay.
that. Are you going to cover the drift aligning?
I can, but there's before I get to drift alignment,
Okay.
I'd like to focus on planetary, because there's a few things on planetary that I get asked a lot, and I really want to go there. So I'm going to go into planetary. So there's a misconception that BackyardEOS takes movies. BackyardEOS does not take movies, at least not in the sense that your camera takes movie. Your camera has a feature, or some cameras have a feature called movie mode, where you can actually take movies. BackyardEOS does not use that mode. BackyardEOS uses live view. It is not the same as movie mode in your camera. So why does it use live view? Because on most camera, and again, I'm approaching this from a quality perspective. Your end result is quality. So quality means you want to have the best image possible when you're recording your planetary session. In live view, not sure if people have heard, but there's a concept of a 1-to-1 pixel resolution. And that's very important. If you're serious about planetary imaging, a 1-to-1 pixel resolution is what you're after. You're not after full HD videos, 1080p, blah blah. That's just BS. You really are after a 1-to-1 pixel resolution. And by that I mean, and the simplest way I can explain that is 1 pixel on your camera sensor ends up to be 1 exact pixel on your image. So that is what 1-to-1 pixel resolution is. It means the pixel that was captured by your camera sensor hasn't been resized, hasn't been resampled in your final image. It is what the sensor captured. Now there might be a few things that the camera does internally that we have no control of, but as far as 1-to-1 pixel resolution, this is what you want for a best image quality. And on most Canon DSLR, the 5x zoom gives you a 1-to-1 pixel resolution. Movie crop mode on many cameras doesn't give you a 1-to-1 pixel resolution, but live view mode with 5x zoom gives you on almost all Canon camera a 1-to-1 pixel resolution. And on those models that it doesn't give you one, it is 99% close. It is almost there, to a point where it doesn't make any difference. And I believe Jerry Rodriguez actually speaks about that in one of his books on planetary imaging using a DSLR. One of his best planetary image was actually with a camera that the 5x zoom does not give him a perfect 1-to-1 pixel resolution, but it was the best image he ever took, and from that he deducted that 1-to-1 pixel resolution is what you need, even if it's at only 99% accurate. So again, if you do planetary imaging, use 5x zoom. So the idea is you would bring the zoom box, I double click, so I unlock the zoom box. Let's say that the camera here is the planet or the part of the moon that I want to image. I'm going to double click it. I'm going to click the 5x zoom, and there you go. So now this is the 5x zoom. It's the same 5x zoom that you would get if you would actually use your camera LCD and your camera menu option to zoom in your live view at 5x. It's the same function that I'm calling from BackyardEOS. So if you do planetary imaging, always use 5x. It's not even a question of should I. You should always, always, always use 5x. There's only one exception that I say often, is if you want to image the full moon, you want to get the full disk. Well, the full disk is not going to fit into that field of view. To get the full disk, to get the full disk, you typically need to use the full field of view here and not 5x. So unless you're imaging the full disk of the moon, you always use 5x. I can't be more clear on that one. There's no, again, it's not an option. If you're after quality, use it. So here, I'm also going to demonstrate a few things here. Here you've got bulb, you've got aperture, and aperture because I've got a lens connected in ISO. So I'm going to change it to ISO 1600, and then I'm going to go to ISO 100. Did you guys see a difference? I did not. I'm going to change aperture. I'm going to go to f20. Did you guys see a difference? I did not. So then people ask questions. Well, I keep changing the aperture. Well, not aperture if you don't have a lens, but I keep changing the ISO, and my image is not dimmer or brighter. It doesn't change. That's because Canon has what it's called exposure simulation, and it is what it says on the tin can. Simulation being the key word here on the can, is it simulates the exposure. But if your shutter or if your camera dial is set to bulb, that exposure simulation is void. It doesn't work on bulb. So you actually need to select any other value than bulb. Typically, any value over 2 seconds will actually give you the maximum it can ever give you. So I'm going to set it to 1 second. See how dimmer it got all of a sudden? That's because I'm at aperture f20. So I'm going to go at 5.6, and all of a sudden the image got brighter. I'm going to put my ISO at 1600. Oh, it stayed the same. So I'm going to bring back my shutter speed 1/10 of a second. Oh, that didn't change. I'm going to go down to 1/1000 of a second. Oh, now it's almost all dark. So I'm going to increase it to 200 of a second and go up, go up. Okay, so that's a bit better. So that's how you would actually control the intensity of the actual image target that you're trying to image, be it Jupiter, be it Saturn, be it anything. So when you do planetary imaging, 5x is rule number 1, unless you're imaging the full moon. That's just key. And then the second rule is select a shutter other than bulb, and typically it will be a shutter of 2 seconds or less, because over 2 seconds it's all the same. Exposure simulation will use the same. It's basically maxed out. So you need to select something under 2 seconds, and typically under 1 second is not out of the norm either. And because you're imaging planetary object, they're typically bright, you can elect to choose an ISO lower than 1600 or 400 or whatnot. It doesn't really matter. The key is you choose something that gives you a reasonable exposure on what you're trying to image. So let's say that moon here, not that moon, but that particular camera is Jupiter. I'm going to increase the exposure just a bit. So let's say that this is Jupiter. The default image count is 100, so BackyardEOS will automatically take a 100 frame and will create an AVI movie for you. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually select 250. I'm going to click record. The first thing that BackyardEOS will do when you click record, it will actually sample the frame rates per second, the number of images per second it is able to download and encode into an AVI. Your typical frame rate per second will be around 20 to 25, depending on the camera model you have. Cameras are not created equal. There are some bad ones for frames per second. The T4i is the worst one. You'll never get more than 10 frames per second on the T4i, and there's nothing you can do. It is simply the camera will not deliver more than 10 images per second. But most cameras, aside from the T4i, will give you between 20 and 25, and it will vary from computer to computer, your disk speed and whatnot. But typically, that's what you should expect. So I'm going to click record, and it's going to take about 4 and 5 seconds to actually create or take a sample. And once it does, there you go. So it's now going away, and it's actually capturing 250 frames into an AVI.
So you're saying a T3i will do better than a T4i?
Any camera will do better than a T4i.
Great. Anybody want a T4i?
No, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't do a good job. All it means is
more frames per second, less frames per second than the others.
Yeah, a T4i is simply not capable of delivering more than 10 frames per second, and I have tested a bunch of them. That's just a limitation of that model. I don't know what they did, but it just won't deliver more than 10. It could be, now the T4i is a special camera, and I say it's a special camera because the EOS-M is actually based on the T4i. So because of that, there might be some electronics, there might be some limitation in the T4i that any other model doesn't have, because it is also the model that the EOS-M is based on. Now, I'm just speculating here. I don't work for Canon, but that's the only logical explanation I can get, or I can think of, as to why the T4i is so different in that particular respect. So now it went along and it actually saved my video. So I'm going to go into BackyardEOS, my download folder, and there is a planetary folder here. And by default, BackyardEOS will also store all of the individual JPEG it took to create the movie. So there's a bunch, and it will actually create store the AVI. Now what I'll do is I'll create another AVI, but this time I'm actually gonna put my hand in front of the camera so that we see it moving. So that, see, I put my hand in front. I'm going to put a pair of glasses here. Oh, it doesn't really show here, but stuff here. So stuff is moving in front of the camera. So all of that is being recorded. Okay, so the encoder is starting. This is done. I'm going back into my BackyardEOS download folder. I now have 2 AVI files and 2 folders containing the individual JPEG. So I'm going to click on the second one and see. So the video is now playing. See my hand when it went front. So that's basically the view of your planet or whatever object you were imaging, the moon or whatnot. So then you can use that AVI to actually use Registax and stack it. A lot of people are asking me, why the individual JPEG? Should I use the individual JPEG? See here, I have my hand in front of these images, so they're black. Or should I use the AVI? The short answer is, doesn't matter. They're the same. The AVI is actually the sum of all those JPEGs, which is actually the live view feed. It's the sum of all those images packed into a movie, so they're the same. So by default, I actually store the JPEG as well, because every now and then the encoder will actually fail, and the video won't be created. Or even worse, the video is created, but Registax or whatever software you're using has problem loading the AVI. If that is the case, then BackyardEOS kept the individual JPEG for you, so you can use the actual individual JPEG to stack instead of the AVI. They are the same. The JPEG does not have lesser quality than the AVI, and the AVI does not have a lesser quality than the JPEG. They are the same quality, so it's more or less a backup. But if you're confident that the JPEG or the AVI is all you need, there's actually an option in the setting dialog that you can change your call Save Planetary JPEG. I can actually uncheck that, and only the AVI will be created if that is unchecked. So that is the planetary imaging. 5x golden rule. Second rule is never use bulb, use another shutter so that the exposure simulation is active. And with the exposure simulator active, you can actually increase or decrease the brightness of the object so that you get the perfect exposure with the ISO that you want. And then you usually set it to the number of images that you want. But it is not magic. AVI is an old technology. AVI dates back from the 1980s. But it is popular. But because it's an old technology, it does have its limitation. Typically, an AVI bigger than 2 meg will and could create issues because it wasn't designed to be bigger than 2 meg. So you want to keep the image count to a reasonable number. Typically, what you would do is I would probably advise to not take anything more than 2,000 frame or 2,500 frames in one particular file, so that you manage the size of your AVI. But what you could do instead is increase the loop count to, let's say, 4. In this case, I'm going to take, or BackyardEOS would take 4 movies of 2,500 images in each AVI file, so you would end up with 4 AVI files for a total of 1,000 frames, 10,000 frames. So you can actually control the size of your AVI file so that it doesn't go over and beyond the limit of that particular file format, which was created almost 30 years ago. Any questions on planetary?
No questions that I see. Earlier you did just say AVI limited to 2 meg. Yep. I think you meant 2 gigabytes, correct?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to make sure because I've run into that issue myself.
Yeah, BackyardEOS uses a commercial encoder. I actually purchased an encoder ByteScout to create the AVI. It can actually create bigger AVI. You can actually create an AVI of 5 gigs if you want, but a lot of the software will actually have issues or difficulty creating or loading those AVI to stack. If that's the case, then you still have the individual JPEG. So you haven't lost any data. It's just that you'll have 5,000 individual JPEG frames to feed into Registax. But usually the stacking software don't care if it's an AVI or a folder full of JPEG. It will actually just use them and stack them. So BackyardEOS is able to create bigger AVI, but the software you're going to be using to actually load those AVI into might not. So just be conscious of that when you're recording your planetary session. Rule of thumb: keep them under 2,000 to 2,500 frames, and you shouldn't have any issues. Okay. Drift alignment. Drift alignment, the reticle that you see here, it's the complex reticle. If you've got the classic edition, it's not as complex. but at the end of it, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of it, what you're trying to do is you're trying to align or drift align your scope. Now, BackyardEOS does not automate drift alignment. It is a tool. Instead, what it is it uses live view, your camera that's already attached to your telescope, with its live view functionality, with its big screen that shows live view. It uses that and simulate you having an illuminated eyepiece in your telescope to actually do the drift alignment manually. So basically, your camera is your eyepiece when you do drift alignment. So what you can do here is you can also have a large grid if you want. You can actually rotate the reticle so that it matches your scope direction, east, west, north, and south. And you can also change the width of the reticle itself. The idea is you want to rotate, you want to move your scope left and right, and you want to make sure that the star actually follows one of those lines when you actually move the scope east, west, and then north, north and south. And if it doesn't, you actually, all you need to do is you rotate the reticle just a little bit on one side or the other, so that when you move the scope using the keypad, north, south, east, west, it actually moves, or the star moves along those lines, so that you're positive that the reticle actually matches the angle of your setup. And then you would do your drift alignment as you would normally do. Again, there is nothing automated in BackyardEOS to do your drift alignment. It is a process, sadly, that is a lot of people fear, including myself when I started doing imaging way back. But it is a process that once you master, it is pretty quickly done. There's different techniques. You just need to practice. You need to read, and you need to understand that BackyardEOS will just provide you with a live feed on that particular drift session that you're doing, and it uses your camera as an eyepiece. Basically, that's what it does. So let's say that there's a star here, and I want to do the drift alignment. Actually, there's no star in the center, so I can't really do it. But what you would do is you would actually start a drift recording, and what that does is it does nothing more than record the drift of your star, and it's actually going to plot the star on the screen as the scope move over time. So typically you would run a recording for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then you would see how the star is drifting. There is a lower image here in the lower right corner. This is the first frame. It's frozen in time. It's the first frame of your recording session, and it actually helps determine how far the star has drifted. Even though it will leave a trail, you will actually see the star trail here. It's also nice to see the exact location where it was initially, so that if it ends up to be at the same place 5 minutes into the drift alignment as it was on the first frame when you started it, then you know you've got no drift. There's a couple of tutorials out there that explains the DARV method, D-A-R-V, and I know PhD has a tutorial, or PhD2 has something in it to actually facilitate drift alignment. And good or bad, I think their approach is a bit more advanced than what I have to offer in BackyardEOS as far as where drift alignment is. Any questions on drift alignment? On the drift alignment feature in BackyardEOS, that is.
There don't seem to be any other questions.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to think of other. Oh
I
yeah,
have
okay.
one question. Can you have two instances of BackyardEOS running at the same time?
Yes, there is. You can. It does require the premium edition though, because connecting to two cameras is a bit. It's not tricky, but it's a bit different because I need to know which camera you want to connect to a specific instance. I do have. Actually, I'm going to go on my support forum because I do have the instructions there. So I'm just going to start Firefox. Support forum is located at forum.otelescope.com. Otelescope is the name of the company, of my company, which is, there you go. So I've got a support request here on BackyardEOS. But there's a section, how-tos. In the how-to section, there's actually one here for how to set up BackyardEOS using two cameras. So what you need to do is, I'm going to go on the first post, sorry, so it's right there at the bottom. So there's actually a few things that you need to do. Set up. When you install BackyardEOS, it creates actually more than one executable file, but it only creates one particular shortcut on your desktop. So I'm just going to navigate to the BackyardEOS. Which one? That's the one I'm using. So it actually created camera 1, camera 2. You could theoretically copy and create camera 3 manually if you want, but BackyardEOS will automatically create camera 1 and camera 2 for you. Only a shortcut for camera 1. So if you want to use a second camera, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just toss that to the side. I'm going to create a shortcut of that camera 2 here on my desktop. Create shortcut, and I'm going to call it camera 2. That's my second instance of BackyardEOS. So I'm going to click on it. It will ask me for my license the first time around. So what I'm going to do is, no, I don't want to do this because then I'm going to be posting my permanent non-expiring
You always
license.
have to be careful.
So yeah, so I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to create a quick and dirty trial license. So there you go. I'm going to create a trial license here. So that's a trial key. So it doesn't matter if you see this, it expires in 30 days. There you go. So this is actually a second camera. If I click connect here, it's gonna, because I only have one camera connected, it won't connect to it because it's already connected by the first instance. But if I had a second camera connected on my computer, which I'm kind of regretting I didn't connect to show off this feature, but it would actually pop up a question. Hey, you have a T2i or you have a 60D also connected to this computer. Which camera do you want to connect to this instance versus that instance? And you just got to make sure you don't connect the same camera twice. Well, actually, it won't let you connect the same camera a second time, but it will pop you a selection for you to choose from because you might have 3 cameras connected, right? And you only want to use camera X. So that's how you would do it. So the reason why it is a separate executable is to make sure that the settings that you change here in your instance number 1 do not cross over instance number 2. So if I start this here, so the red one is my instance number 2. These settings here are completely independent from the settings in your first instance. So your camera 1 and camera 2 can download images in different folders, can have different settings, and they will not cross over. So that is the only reason why I opted to have a second executable or camera 2 that way. But yes, you can have more than one camera, but it requires 2 instances.
What happens with the dithering at that point?
What was that?
What happens with dithering at that point?
So there's some issues, or there's some issues. There's some limit to using two camera. You can only use one to dither right now. If you need, or if you want to dither using two cameras, what you need to do is have a serial cable that is actually hooked up to both cameras to actually trigger the bulb sequence. This is also documented. I'm not sure if I documented that. Let's come here. Yeah, so I documented those limitation here. You cannot dither, for instance, if you have both cameras mounted on the same mount. So that's a current limitation. What I would like to do in the future, though, is have the second instance a slave of the master instance. So as you would program your capture plan center on one instance, it would actually send the command, just like Astro Tortilla sends the request for BackyardEOS to take an image. My future plan for dual camera is have a master instance of BackyardEOS that talks to one or more slave instance connected to each to their own camera, and only the master instance would actually initiate the capture plan, initiate dither, and would control everything. But I am not there yet, but that is a plan. For now, though, you are limited for sure. I'm telling it like it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Log files. Sometimes you'll have issues with the software, or for whatever reason I ask you, send me the log files, send me the log files. What are the log files? Well, underneath the hood, BackyardEOS logged pretty much everything you did in your imaging session, including all the buttons you clicked, in the order you click them, including all the commands it sent to the camera, and all the status that it got back from the camera. Because when there is an issue, these are the first, the log files are the first things that I will ask you to send me, so that I can look at a pattern trying to determine what the issue was. And I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but just underneath the main imaging mode, there's only 3 lines of status or history. If I click on it, I have a bigger history here. And I can actually click here to open the log folder directly from the user interface, or I can go into my picture. I'm going to go into my pictures. So again, my pictures. I've got my BackyardEOS folder, which is all my download folders, but it also created a backyard temp folder. In backyard temp folder, there's a log folder. These are all the log files from my imaging session. So if I close this, I'm inside BackyardEOS. If I click View Log History, Open Log Folder will actually open the main folder location. Users, owner, pictures, backyard temp logs. So basically, the log files contains the date where when you started BackyardEOS. In this particular instance, I started BackyardEOS at 10:47. I'm in Eastern Standard Time, so it's 11:38 right now. So I started that particular instance some 40 minutes ago. There's always 2 log files in 3.1. One is the actual user interface log file, and the other one is a background worker. A lot of stuff I actually push into the background thread, and that's that log file. So when I ask you to send me log files, you go into My Pictures, Backyard tab, Logs, and typically you'll send me. Oops. Typically you'll send me 2 files that correspond to the session where you had some issues. So I'm just going to open one quick log file here, just to give you an idea of what it logged. So it logs a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. It doesn't mean much, like I've sent a command to the camera requesting for the battery level. It was successful. everything is logged. Everything is logged. So pretty much when there's an error, there's going to be something in here that describes the error that you got, and it's probably going to be very, very extremely useful for me to isolate the issue. And typically I look at the log file. Even though a log file can have 10,000 lines, it usually takes me less than a minute to find the error and try and make some sense out of it. Every now and then I've got a stubborn one that might take me a few days to try and discern what the pattern is that leads to it. But so far, the log files have been a pile of gold when you guys are reporting issues. So that's how to get to the log files. I think I'm about at the end of what I wanted to show. I've actually made a pretty good tour of all the major features in BackyardEOS right now in the last 2 hours or so.
A lot of things I didn't realize were in there.
What was that?
That it has a lot of things I didn't realize were in there. I don't take, most of my pictures are taken with the CCD, but I do several times a year go out with my BackyardEOS and controlling the session, and I just use the the most basic commands to make up the sequence.
Yeah.
A lot more in it.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of features that you're going to be using only once in a while, once in a blue moon, not regularly. But the most obvious one that you're going to be using on a daily basis is definitely the capture plan center. I mean, it's a dream sequencer, like the author in the Sky at Night magazine labeled it a few years back. So this is what you're going to be using the most. Frame and focus, it is, a lot of people have asked me to actually put frame and focus as the first option, because when you start BackyardEOS or when you start an imaging session, the first thing you do is frame and focus. And the reason why it's not in the first place and that it's imaging mode, it's because the first option here is what becomes live once you connect your camera, and I didn't want frame and focus to become on each time you connect your camera. So for that reason, I left it close to the other features that uses live view, which is planetary and drift alignment. So these three features uses live view, and only the first one that does. So there is a candy in version 3.1, and I'm kind of surprised that nobody asked that question. I'm going to disconnect my camera. Just for, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to close BackyardEOS completely. Okay, that's just the log file. I'm going to close that. I'm going to stop that PhD. So I'm going to start BackyardEOS once again. So that's my instance here. This is 3.1, release candidate 5. I haven't posted that one on the forum yet, but I will later this week. And to anybody that's been using 3.03 in the past, or any release candidate of 3.1 up to release candidate 4, can you find something different in that particular screen you're seeing right now? No one's taking the bait? Okay. See the first option? It's not called imaging, it's called preview. I've received a good dozen of requests over the years, probably close to 100 over the years, but more particularly in the last 6 months, a lot of requests. I'd like to be able to use BackyardEOS to view my images without having a camera connected. So that's what I've added here by preview. So if I connect the camera, you see it's the same as before. It's the imaging mode. But if I disconnect the camera, that mode all of a sudden becomes just a preview mode. And if I select it, it's almost identical as if when I have the camera connected. Of course, frame and focus, planetary, and drift alignment are disabled. because my camera is not connected, it's disconnected. In fact, if you look at the window title, I actually make sure that you know that the camera is disconnected. It's right here in the window title. But what that does is it allows you to view your images in disconnected mode. Prior to this, what you could do is, with the premium edition, you could actually create your imaging plan offline without a camera connected. You still have that in the preview mode. But if I take an image here, I've got an image of M33 here, I'm just going to drag it here, and it automatically loads. My camera is not connected, and I've got M33. Or any image that I'm going to just drag another one in there, actually. So there you go. So I'm able to now view my image even if the camera is disconnected. And I still have access to the same rich feature. If I right-click anywhere on the image, this is a premium edition feature, by the way. So if I right-click here on the image and move my cursor around, I actually see a zoom box, I see the histogram, I see lots of data, the mean, median, standard deviation, full width, half maximum. Half flux diameter being calculated on the fly as I move around. And I can decide, oh, you know what? This is a really good image. By the way, this was an image. This was a 8-minute shot unguided that I took a few weeks ago. Stars are not quite round. But I can still right-click on the thumbnail and actually mark those images. And it will actually rename the file as well. It will never delete the file again. It will just rename the file. So this is a bit of a candy that no one has seen before, but it is going to make its way through into the final release of 3.1. Again, that preview mode is a premium edition feature. And as usual, when I do release 3.1, it's free upgrades to everyone. I haven't charged a dime in upgrade since initial release in 2010. Yeah, 2010. Yeah, about that. October 2010, the first release. So if you've got a premium version of 3.03 right now, you're going to be able to get 3.1 free premium edition, and the same for classic. If you've got the 3.03 classic, you're going to be able to get 3.1 classic edition for free.
The image doesn't have to be located on the desktop. You can just open that from anywhere then.
Yeah, so let's say I've
drag
got
it from anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere. And you can drag. I'm going to drag a few images there. It doesn't matter if it's a JPEG or CR2, or because of Nikon, also NEF as well. So I'm going to drag 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I'm going to drag 10 images right now. The beauty of it is the first one will almost show up instantly, and then all of the other ones are actually being pushed into the background thread. So you see that number here? It's processing them one by one, and they're being shown. And the UI remains responsive. They're being worked on in the background. So all of my 10 images were all loaded here. So then I can click on any thumbnail and see them one by one. And my camera is disconnected. And when I do decide to connect my camera, those images are not lost. They're still there. So there you go. My camera's connected now because you see like live view is active. This is live view. Going back, my images are not there. So what's nice about that is you've got all of your images there. You're disconnecting your camera. You go back in preview and all of your images from your current session, even though the camera has been disconnected, they're still there available for you to view, for you to mark as being good or bad using the image quality if you right-click on the thumbnail. Again, right-click on the thumbnail, grading images, it's a premium feature edition.
This is not ready for release yet, or it is ready for release?
Yeah, I'm almost there.
Okay.
I'm very, like I'll be releasing release candidate 5 this week on the support forum. So if you don't have an account yet, I recommend you just go on the support forum. It's located at forum.otelescope.com. In there, there's a section for BackyardEOS support. BackyardEOS, and the first thread is BackyardEOS 3.1 release candidate 4, which I posted, I believe, about a month ago, and I will actually lock this thread in a few days, and I will post another one with release candidate 5, and it will be this particular release here. And you would use your normal, your current V3 license key.
Okay, because I've got 3.0.2.
Yep, that's okay. That's okay. Even if you've got version 1, you can upgrade to version 3 for free. I don't charge for upgrade.
Okay.
Question from Google: new features in 3.1.
Yes. The list.
I'm guessing that's what I'm guessing they're asking for. I don't know if there's.
Yeah, there is. If you're upgrading from 3.03 to version 3.1, you are not going to see a lot of visual feature. Probably the biggest visual feature that you're going to see is that preview mode here, that you are able to, I connected the camera, that you are able to view images with the camera disconnected. This is probably the most visible feature that you are going to get. The other features is a lot about performance. For those that have used BackyardEOS and have taken images, bulb images of less than 30 seconds, a lot of them have reported, well, my images get stacked into the image queue and they never show up. So I've done a lot of work in the background thread performance and whatnot. If I take, say, 5 images here of bulb, say 1 second, and I'm going to take them back to back. So it's taking 1, downloading. As soon as it's done downloading, it will actually start. Oh, I've got dithering on. There you go. Got caught in my own in my own demo. So I'm going to abort that. So I'm going to start that again with the dithering off. So what it does is it actually takes a picture, and it will start to take the second picture, even though the first picture is not done being post-processed. And by being post-processed, I mean reading the EXIF data, renaming the file, loading the actual image to reconstruct the histogram. So all of that is happening in the background while the second image is being taken. So that is a lot of work that is in version 3.1 that was not in version 3.03. That work was, or the second picture was actually being put on hold while that work was taking place. And stuff like that. So a lot of performance gain. Planetary recording, if you do planetary, you should see a gain in performance if you record more than one planetary recording back to back. Now the video encoding is being pushed into the background worker thread, which is the low priority, so that if you're doing a second back-to-back recording, the frame rate per second will be maintained as close as possible, because the encoding is going to be occurring in a very, very low priority thread, while the recording of your second session is in a high foreground thread, so that it is able to capture as much frame as possible in as little time as possible. I will have the list ready. I don't have the list now. In terms of the features versus I mean the step up from 3.03 versus 3.1, but I will have that on the website the day that it goes in production for sure. There's a few little tweaks here and there for sure, but I don't have the list yet.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to give Google one more refresh. No more questions on Google. You did get a lot of thanks from all the people on Google whose questions you answered, as well as in the chat here.
Yeah, well, you guys are welcome. BackyardEOS is a labor of love. It's my baby. I do not go to bed at night without clearing my inbox and my support issues, and I do not leave home for work in the morning before I clear my inbox as well. So and people can actually attest to that when they post a question. Almost every question on the support forum, I will actually reply to. So you guys made BackyardEOS what it is today as much as I made it what it is today. So the feeling is mutual. I thank you very much for your support.
Well, thank you for being on, and thank you for BackyardEOS.
You're welcome.
Yes, very much appreciated.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Oh, it's definitely a pleasure having you. I really think you've done more for DSLR photography than a lot of people, and I think Backyard Nikon is going to change a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah, for those of you that have Nikons, Backyard Nikon is almost a carbon copy of what BackyardEOS is. So if you have a friend that has a Nikon and says, hey, maybe I want to buy a Canon because I want to use BackyardEOS, or there's more software and whatnot, Backyard Nikon is almost identical with just a few features that Nikon does not support that Canon does, like for instance the 5x zoom in planetary. As good as it is for Canon cameras, it doesn't appear to be in the Nikon SDK, so I can't pull that one up. But other than that, pretty much the same set of features, except another subtle feature here and there that's not there.
It'll help limit the Canon versus Nikon debate.
Yeah, because Nikon is actually coming along a great way in the last couple of years. Most of their newer models now can achieve bulb over USB. Nikon, not Nikon, but Canon has been pretty good since 2008. Nikon was a bit late joining the game, but most recent model like the D5300 and the D7100 actually can do bulb over USB. You don't need a serial cable like you did with the 20D 10 years ago with Canon. And some of the sensors in Nikon cameras like the D5100, the D5300, and the D7100 all have Sony sensors, and they are great. They are great. They closely match what the Canon 6D has. Canon 6D it's a full frame camera, but very, very, very low noise. And some of the Nikon cameras, especially those with Sony sensors, are pretty much coming up to par with those.
I should mention I just bought stock in Sony 2 days ago. I was having a debate on Canon, Nikon, Sony, etc., and I thought, you know what, let's take a look at Sony. And I looked at them long enough that I put my money where my mouth is, so to speak. And I'm a Canon shooter, but maybe that gives me a good perspective.
Yeah, no, so the Sony sensors are pretty good. The Canon sensors are good, are very good too. But I don't think Canon uses any Sony sensors in any of their camera. Nikon actually uses sensors from different vendors out there, like the D5200. The Nikon D5200 has a Toshiba sensor in it, and it's not as good as the Sony sensor that you have in its predecessor, the 5100, and its successor, the 5300, which both have Sony sensors. Sony sensors, they're awesome.
Yeah, that's what's happening on the CCD side too. I think they've got, I mean, the sensor business, they're doing a great job in that. Spent a lot of money on R&D.
Yep. And it shows, right? The R&D for long exposures in the dark, not a lot of company are putting money in that area because that's not the market. I mean, astrophotographers, if you ask Canon in terms of percentage, what do we represent? It's almost barely to have a meaningful conversation from a sales point, from a marketing point of view. Yeah, they came up with the 20DA. They did came up with the 60DA, which shows a good level of interest, at least from Canon, that hey, there is a market. We should cater to that market. I mean, we can't say the same for Nikon. I can't Nikon never came up with an astrophotography camera, and neither did Sony. Canon did twice, so that's kudos to Canon. They are actually recognizing our hobby as being a market.
Actually, from what I've gathered, what's happening over at Canon is that they've got somebody up in the upper levels that's an amateur astronomer, and he just said that that's what he wanted done.
Yeah, well.
So I'm not sure it was a marketing decision so much as a
passion about the particular art. But guess what? That's how BackyardEOS started. I mean, right before we went online a few hours ago, I was talking to Adam, and BackyardEOS is a mistake. I mean, I can't be more straightforward than that. When I started doing photography or astrophotography in 2008, I bought my Canon 40D, and I was a bit disappointed by the roster of softwares that was out there to command or to control my 40D, and I've been doing software development for I'm going to say 25 years now. I just said how old I was, but anyway, so I've been doing software development for 25 years now, and so for me to code or to program something for myself to control the camera, it was just normal. And initially, it was just for an aid for focusing, because back then we didn't have Batman Moss. It didn't exist. There was the Artman mask and stuff like that. So it was a lot more limiting in terms of what was available back then. So it started at just the frame and focus here. I still have the first print screen of what it looked like initially, and it doesn't look like it does today. But that's how it started. Just to go to what you just said about the Canon executive. Same for me. It was a mistake. I did that for me, and then it became a product. The same goes for a lot of companies out there that are in this business. You look at ASA in Austria, where they make the premium mount and premium telescope, and it started like that. There's somebody in the executive team that was an astronomy buff, and started to do some high-end telescope and focusers. The same with Comac, 10 micron in Italy. Comac it's a company that's been around for, I don't know, I'm going to say 30 years. It's a big company, and somebody there was an astronomy buff, and they created a subdivision called 10 micron, and they do premium mount. So a lot of the businesses out there starts with an amateur astronomer at heart running the business and wants to do a spin-off. And kudos to those that pull it off, because the more people like that pull it off, the more variety we get in terms of product, the more focus the product, whatever software, hardware, and accessories, the more focus that product will be in terms of catering to the actual amateur photographer that we are. So yeah, we're living in wonderful times for astronomy. I remember having a conversation with the owner of the astronomy store here in Ottawa, Canada. I'm going to say 5, 6, 7 years ago, and he said, Guylain, he says, back in the 80s, a 6-inch reflector was a big telescope to have. If you had a 6-inch reflector, you had a state-of-the-art telescope that the average Joe could afford. Well, that scope today is just a few $100. So we've come a long way. Great times for sure. So anyway, I'm going away from what the presentation was. It's just I'm just passionate about the astronomy photography as a whole. So you got me going there.
I agree with that. If you're passionate about what you do, you're going to come out with a good product. And I see a lot of boards running their companies based on the numbers and only putting out products that are profitable. and it gets boring. They just do what they're used to, and nothing changes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of you already know that, but for me, developing a feature, and I think it shows in the UI, I've got enough feedback over the years that the UI is very intuitive, it's feature pack, yet there's a manual. If I click on the question mark icon here, it's a brand new manual in 3.1 that you're going to be getting as opposed to a PDF. There is a manual, but that manual is a necessary evil. I need the manual because people are asking for it, but less than 1 or 2% will actually read the manual or even need to read the manual. I've put a lot of effort into the UI design, and the feedback that I've gotten over the years tells me that I've achieved the result that I wanted, which was a very simple, intuitive user interface, and that will not change. If a feature is a nice feature, but is too complicated and will mess up the user interface too much, I will not implement that feature because I don't want, and that's a design decision, I don't want to clutter the user interface with unnecessary features or complication to a point where the beginner astrophotographer will get lost in the user interface. And I'm not saying that if you open BackyardEOS for the first time and you have never done astro imaging, that you won't get lost or overwhelmed by the user interface. But in contrast, if I just minimize here the user interface, I've lost the focus control here. It just disappeared. It's still there if I click this. But if you buy the classic edition, this is what you see initially. You don't see all of those additional controls here at the top. They're not there because they're not part of that edition. So the classic edition actually hides a lot of features that could be overwhelming to the beginner. So again, any feature, and one of the reasons why I've been struggling in actually implementing the autofocus is I've given it 3 good attempts in the last 2 years, and in all 3 attempts I have failed miserably in offering or delivering that awesome feature of autofocusing without messing up the user interface. Each attempt there was just too many buttons, too many options, too many this to set, and I've actually pulled it out of release 3 last year. It was supposed to be in the initial version 3. I pulled it off because I was not satisfied with the user interface. It was too complicated. It would have boosted up my support by 500%, and it would have been a nightmare for people to understand. So I pulled it out of the release, and I did that 3 times, and I'm still not satisfied with the ease of use of autofocusing. As simple as autofocus seems to be, it is a complex task. It really is a complex task, and it's not as simple as just move the focus in or out, measure the full width half maximum, and when it starts to increase again, just reverse the focuser and get to the lowest point. It's not as simple as that, and I have failed, in my opinion, and I'm very hard on my user interaction assessment. If it's too complicated, it's not going in, because 50% of the feature, in my opinion, as I see them, 50% of the feature is the usability and the user interaction. So complex tasks, simple user interface, it gets implemented. Complex task, complex user interface, I will hold off the release of that feature until, and sometimes it takes 6 months, and sometimes it takes 3 months, and sometimes it takes a year for the light bulb to come up and say, you know what, I don't need all of that complexity. Remove this, do that. User interface is simple. Users are going to buy into that feature, and because it works, and because it's almost an easy button. You click on a button and it works. So that's primarily the reason why I've held off on the auto-focusing feature for about 2 years now that I've been talking about it. But it's not because I want to, it's because I'm not satisfied with my user interaction implementation of it. Okay.
All right. Well, we've had a ton of viewers online. I think we hit as many as 14 at one point, and that's plus the 9 that I think we had in here. And there are always people popping in and popping out online as well. We actually have 4 viewers right now. But I'm going to say we're probably pretty close to the end.
Yeah.
So when you guys get kicked off online, it's I do apologize. It's just me stopping the broadcast. But I don't know. Do we have anything else to go over?
I pretty much covered at a high level the vast majority of features. So I think unless I've got specific questions from my perspective, I've delivered the content that I wanted to deliver.
I haven't seen any new questions come in. Guylain, I want to thank you again for coming on and doing this, and again just for your program. It's amazing. And for the viewers out there, if you don't have it and you're using a Canon, download it. You won't regret it. Just great money spent.
Okay, well, thanks again, Adam. And if anybody has any questions, I'm on cloudy nights every freaking.
And probably later tonight, right?
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Alex.
Thanks a lot. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Yeah, and I'm stopping the broadcast now.